So this MSI laptop is worth $5,400. Well, is it worth it? Let's find out.
Welcome to Own or Disown, where tech decisions are made easy.
So yeah, HID Evolution were kind enough to send me the MSI Titan 18HX, and I've always been a great fan of the Titan lineup. I really have. But it's a tall order, $5,400, when you can perhaps just get the recently reviewed Asus ROG Strix Scar 18, which is still expensive at $3,900, but you know, it's still substantially cheaper than the Titan. And to be honest with you, I don't think getting a 4090 laptop any more than $3,000 makes much sense to me, really. I'd rather go for the 4080 and pay like $2,500. You know, I'm sure prices will drop, so sit tight. But we'll go through it. All in all, it is a nice machine, but I certainly wouldn't pay the $5,400. Build quality is good. You know, the hinges are stiff. The screen has no flex. It's pretty much an all metal build. You know, there's no creaks. Underneath it's metal too, and it's got some strange sort of like rubber feet at the bottom here, which does give it good air inflow, I guess. You know, the chassis remains cool even underneath. You can see the hot air coming out the vents very nicely. It's got a mechanical keyboard, which I do like. I mean, I do like a mechanical keyboard. It's Cherry MX switches. So it's actually not too loud, but it has a nice tactile feedback to it. So I do prefer that to the membrane keyboard. And of course, MSI has one of the best RGB keyboards about, you know, different patterns and things you can have on there. Of course, it's Steel Series. And what does bother me, you know, like Asus has their Armory Crate. They've got everything in one place in their software, the RGB, the fan control, everything. Well, unfortunately, MSI has the Steel Series app to control the RGB keyboard. They've got the MSI True Color to alter the color of the screen, and then they've got the regular MSI app to alter the power modes. And I mean, you can switch the power modes by pressing a key up here at the top, the F7 key, and it just switches around, but it doesn't tell you what it is. It shows you a picture, and of course, if you haven't memorized the pictures here, you're fine. But you know, it'd be easier just to say, you know, you press it and it's a silent mode or extreme performance or balanced. I'd like that. In fact, the best way is what Lenovo do, changing the color on the power button. I mean, I think that's a beautiful way of showing it. But the Asus, at least does show you what power mode you're going to be in there by, you know, by the words. Right. Also, this, you know, the Asus Strix has advanced optumus with Gsync. This doesn't. You know, for $5,400, it doesn't have Gsync. It doesn't have advanced optumus. It's got the regular hybrid mode, which, to be honest, I was getting, the games would just stutter and freeze in hybrid mode. So you have to go into dedicated GPU mode and then do a reboot. But that leads to another problem. I would do that, and then I would get an issue saying that you know, my PIN number or the Face ID doesn't work anymore to log you in. So you'd have to go through the whole process of authentication with Microsoft to send you a PIN, and keep doing that each time just to sign in. It's most frustrating. Now, I did mention it does have a Windows Hello webcam, so that is nice. The Asus Scar 18 doesn't have that, but you know, it's still as good. But if it doesn't work when you're changing power modes, what's the point, right? And as for a webcam, I thought it was pretty poor. This is actually what it looks and sounds like. Here's a webcam. Looks 720p to me. Seems to overexpose things, and also a bit too red. I don't like it. Not that good. But this is what it sounds like, and also with the max fan. Now going back to the RGB, you do have RGB here on the lid. This is nice, you know, the emblem does light up and you can change that. Of course you've got the RGB keyboard, but you'll notice also we have an RGB trackpad. which looks nice, you know, it does look nice, but I'd much prefer to have a regular trackpad, to be honest, because all this is just like one piece of perspex glass or whatever, right? It's all level. There's no, you can't feel any ridge around the trackpad. So in the dark, I know you can see it, but when you're looking at the screen, it's hard to tell where the trackpad is, right? And I much prefer having a regular trackpad where you can feel it. And also, I found that the activation was quite stiff. So if I was trying to just do a snippet of the screen with one hand, I'd often release it by mistake. It was just a bit too stiff, I think, for me. There's no rattling or anything, so that was good, but it was just a bit too stiff. So I do prefer, say, that on the Asus Strix Scar 18. So the panel is a UHD plus, so that's 3840 by 2400. So 16 by 10, so basically it's a 4K plus version, right? And it's very nice. I mean, it's eye-searing bright. It really is. I mean, that's, the Asus Scar is about 1100 nits. This is probably about the same. And I thought that was really, really bright. Ghosting performance, because it's 120 hertz, right? I mean, in game you can't really tell so much, right? I mean, unless you got bionic eyes, you've got ninja vision. But in the ghosting test, it was certainly a lot worse than, say, the Asus Scar, which has a 240 hertz refresh rate. So for gaming, I think I do prefer the Asus panel. It's HDR, so it's in standard, SDR mode is 8-bit, HDR it's 10-bit, and it does make everything pop. But I do find in some games it just brightens a lot, and I think I prefer SDR for gaming, to be honest. But for movies and things, yeah, it looks pretty good. And it's a mini LED display, so the contrast is fantastic. It really is. No backlight bleed. The colors pop. The blacks are really black. So that is pretty sweet. In terms of the color accuracy, it has 98% of sRGB, 79% of Adobe RGB, and 80% of the DCI P3 color space. So it's pretty good. So I'd say it's a good laptop. For video editing, photo work. It's very good for that. Gaming, it's okay. I didn't notice that much in terms of tearing. I mean, I've tested one of these displays before, and I saw quite a bit of tearing. I was playing Far Cry 6, and I didn't see too much tearing. Here's the footage, and you can just judge for yourself, of course. Now, it does drop down to 60 hertz when you go on batteries, which is pretty nice. Now, it does have a 99 watt hour battery, but compared to the Asus Strix Scar 18, where I got like 5 hours 40 minutes, I think this got like 3 hours 40. So it was about a couple of hours less. That's at 50% brightness. Battery saver, streaming YouTube. And that's, of course, just switching to the integrated graphics only. The ports, you do have two USB-A's on the left, and you do have an SD card reader on the left as well, which I do like MSI laptops for that. Some laptops have micro SD cards. I prefer full size because that's what my camera takes. And on the right hand side, you do have a combo headphone mic jack, have another USB-A, and a Thunderbolt, and a USB-C. Now you can't charge using a USB-C charger. I tried that, so that's a shame. That's something that Asus allows on all of their laptops. Now around the back you also have some ports. You have the rectangular power connector, you have an HDMI, and you have an Ethernet. And I do quite like the pattern around the back, where it's like blue, so it has a bit of colour to it, so that makes it look nice. But of course the Asus had no ports at the back, and it actually had a nice big long heatsink around the back, so the cooling on that was much better than it was on here. We'll come to that in a second. So the MSI Titan here has 128 gigabytes of RAM. That's pretty good. 5600 DDR5 5600, and it's got 4 sticks in there. Now it does have, I wanted to show it to you, but it does have an aluminium cover over the top, and that's got some thermal pads sticking it down there. So I tried to prise it off, but I didn't want to bend it because I do have to send it back. But it's got 4 sticks, 128 gigabytes. So that's pretty good. Now you can't get that on the Asus Scar. That'll only max out at like 64. So kudos for that. But you've got to get something for your money, right? Now it does have 3 M.2 slots. I have 2 drives in there in RAID 0, so we've got some very fast read and write speeds. So that was very good. And the speakers, you've got stereo speakers with the grills firing down at the bottom front. They're actually pretty loud, around about 82, 83 decibels. They do get a bit of distortion with music at max loudness, I would say, and bass is perhaps not as quite as good as if it had a dedicated subwoofer, but still on all they're pretty loud enough certainly to drown out the fan noise. So yeah, so pressing the FN and the up arrow key does activate the turbo fan, and the max fan noise there was 63 decibels, so that is pretty loud, right? But if you just have it on extreme performance mode with the fan just adjusting itself accordingly, that's 51 decibels, which is the same as the max fan in the ASUS Strix Scar 18. Now what might be better is just putting it on balanced mode, and then that brings it down to 44 decibels. So that was pretty palatable, and you know, gaming was still pretty good. So in terms of like the temperatures when gaming, well, the CPU would can run up to around about 90, 92 degrees, 93 degrees. So the CPU would get pretty hot. The graphics card, the 4090, pretty cool. You know, we're looking typically in the 60s. So that was not bad. As for the power usage, the GPU would go up to about 166 watts. You know, it's supposed to be 175 watt max. So it would go up to about 166. That's what I saw. And the CPU, you know, like about 89 watts or so, like that. So combined CPU and GPU watts would be around about 250 watts, I would say. So yeah, the cooling not as good as the ASUS Strix Scar 18, which is a shame. I mean, on the side here, it does have some air intakes. They look like speaker grills, but there's no speakers there, so it must be air intakes for the fans. And I think a lot of it has to do with not having a really big heatsink at the back. Now the ASUS did have liquid metal on the CPU. This has Noctua NTH2 on the CPU and the GPU, so it doesn't have any liquid metal. So that could be to blame as well. But I think a lot of the difference in the cooling is perhaps also it doesn't have quite a big heat sink at the back like the ASUS Strix Scar 18 has. So let's take a look at some of the performance numbers. In Cinebench R24. It's the MSI laptop is actually in blue. All the rest are in red. So the multi-core score of 1665, that is quite a way behind the ASUS ROG Strix Scar 18. That got 1812. Now I did undervolt both. I undervolted the ASUS by 70 millivolts, and I did get a slight bump in performance. Also, unfortunately, with the Titan, I didn't seem to get any extra performance at all. And I did try doing the IMON tweak because I did feel that it was getting thermally limited as well as power limited. You'd get, like say, 120, 130 watts on the MSI. On the ASUS, you'd get like up to 170 watts, right? So there's a big difference in power. And unfortunately, the IMON tweak, it didn't see it would crash. It actually froze. I had to reset the BIOS, and the undervolting didn't seem to do anything. So, or not so much. I tried 80 millivolts. So yeah, unfortunately, it wasn't quite as good as the ASUS. The same you would see on Cinebench R23. I got a score of 29,185 multi-core. Whilst the ASUS ROG Strix Scar 18 in turbo mode got like just slightly more, 30,726. And of course, when that was undervolted, about 32,500. So the ASUS Strix Scar 18 would typically be about 93 degrees on the CPU, whilst the Titan 18 would be around about 96, 97, and then start to throttle. So that was the biggest difference there. And of course, the power difference, of course, 170 odd watts. And doing a CPU only work on the ASUS Strix Scar 18 compared to like 120, 130 watts on the MSI Titan. So it's thermally limited and it's power limited. It's a shame. So look at some games here. Cyberpunk 2077. The ROG Strix Scar 18 got 82, whilst the MSI Titan 76 FPS. So a bit of a deficit there. Of course, I also indicate at a native resolution the 3840 by 2400. 51 FPS. In Far Cry 6, Yeah, I mean the Asus also got a low frame rate on this relatively to other laptops I've tested. The Titan got 103 FPS, whilst the Scar 18 got 110. So there's a bit of a deficit there. Now the Clevo X30 370, there's a 13900HX and the RTX 4090 that got 137. So it's strange. And at like UHD Plus, it got 63 FPS. Now, one good thing, Hogwarts Legacy, we know it's a bit of a bitch of a game for these multi-threaded CPUs. So the 14900HX in the Asus Strix Scar had the same issue as many, like the 13900s, where you'd get stutters in games. Now, the Clevo X370 didn't have those issues, and likewise, the MSI Titan here ran flawlessly. There was no stutters at all. The 1% lows were much better, at around about 28 compared to, say, 5 on the Asus Scar. Now, what I had to do on the Scar was I had to disable the efficiency cores, and that solved the problem, which you can do in the software there. If you want to do the same type of thing in the MSI, you'll have to go into the BIOS to do that, and it will allow you to do it if you go into the advanced BIOS, but it's all extra hassle. But still, it ran nice, and actually got 77 FPS average, actually beating the Asus ROG Strix 18 and the Clevo X370. In The Last of Us, it pretty much matched the Asus ROG Strix Scar 18, about 107 FPS, and at UHD Plus, it got 51. Pretty similar. You'll find that playing at native resolution performance similar to like an RTX 4070 at 2560 by 1600. Assassin's Creed Valhalla, it also did pretty well, 130, just slightly pipping the Asus ROG Strix Scar 18, and at UHD Plus, playable 68. And in Watch Dogs Legion, it got 56 FPS, so it was slightly behind, say 8 to 10% behind the Asus ROG Strix Scar 18, which was strange, and 30 FPS at 3840 by 2400. Now this is high settings, of course. It's ultra settings, ray tracing ultra with no DLSS. Now if we look at the CPU performance in say like TimeSpy Extreme CPU Score, you see that again the 14900HX in the Titan doesn't perform as well as the same CPU in the Scar 18. So that's very, very strange. And we'll see it again here in the regular TimeSpy CPU, whereby the Titan only gets 13,850 points, and that's actually behind even the 12700H in the Legion 5 Pro. So the CPU is not doing so well, and I think that's what's holding it back, to be honest with you. Now, for those wanting to use it for music production, I did do the latency mon test, and unfortunately it failed. I tried it on dedicated GPU and integrated GPU only, and it failed in both modes, so that was a shame. So one thing, the MSI Titan 18 does have a 400 watt power brick. It's the first I've seen, and it's actually not that much bigger than the 330 watt brick that's used on the Asus Strix Scar 18. And its weight of the whole system, it's around about 8 pounds. Now it is a pound heavier than the Asus Strix Scar 18, but it's an 18-inch laptop, full metal build, so I don't think it's too bad. Alright, so how would I sum up the MSI Titan 18HX? Well, I was a bit disappointed, particularly considering it's the most expensive laptop I've tested, 5,400, and you don't get advanced optums, you don't get Gsync, and gaming in the hybrid mode would offer game freezes, so that was just such a shame. I think also the software is out of date now, right? I mean, I'd like to see everything in one spot, like I mentioned, make it much more easier. I did like it's got a Windows Hello camera, but the webcam itself sucks. Build quality is nice, can't fault that at all. Easy to get into. MSI is always good at that. It does have it has a vapor chamber in it, but the cooling didn't seem to be all that good. It's thermal throttle and CPU only work, reduce the performance, and also power limit throttle too. So you're not getting what you pay for, which is frustrating. Gaming wise, it wasn't so bad. I mean, the CPU would get hot, in extreme performance mode, and of course the fan noise would be pretty loud too. I mean, you can put on the max fan, bring it down the temperatures a little bit, but at 60 odd decibels, that's louder. So you probably end up playing in balance mode, which then begs the question, why not just get a 4080, and save a lot of money. So all in all, a little bit disappointing. I can't see HID moving many of these units, I'm afraid. I think the price needs to come down to, I hate to say it, needs to come down by like $2.5 grand. You know, it's a shame. But anyway, I hope you found that video useful. And if you've got any questions, you know, please let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching. Bye now.